everyone, Hollywood Big Boss here, and to your shock, to my shock, holy shit. We're in Savoy, Illinois, right near the University of Illinois. This was rather spontaneous that I found out that you were here. So, we have the former owner of the Only Heritage Duelist League, former 10-time or 11-time Only Heritage champion, RedMyst. Oh man, it's so good to see you again.
It's great to see you again.
I missed you, dude.
It's great to see you again, Hollywood.
So, you know how these interviews work. I gotta know the details. What got you started into dueling?
Okay. So, when I was about 13, roughly, I was in middle school and I had this friend named Vincent. And, well, at the time I was watching Dragon Ball Z, but he got into Yu-Gi-Oh! He got the Yu-Gi original structure deck, and he had told me that, hey, this game is cool, it's fun, let's try it out. My very first card I got was Card of Destruction, which he had given me from his original deck. So I decided that it was, okay, I'll give this a shot. I get the Blue Eyes deck and I end up having a blast with it. I won once, he won once, but before we could finish the best 2 out of 3 match, we had to go back to school and do our work.
Of course.
And yeah, that's how it all got started.
Wow. So you were in Illinois at the time when this was going on, correct?
No.
No. So you were still in Florida then?
Yes. I didn't come to Illinois until I was in 8th grade, which is probably around 14 years old.
Oh, okay. Okay, so now it makes sense. I wasn't exactly sure when you had moved up here and all that stuff, but what was the first real deck aside from that Kaiba starter deck that you worked on? Or did you really have a theme that you were going for when you were first getting the card game going?
Well, more or less what it was whatever worked at the time. I wasn't really going with a theme because back then, whenever all the booster packs and stuff were out, I would just get starter decks and from there just modify one deck or another. Somewhere in that general timeline, I lost my Blue Eyes deck. I'm not sure what happened.
But you lost it.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear. Did you have another deck after that you worked on, or were you out of the card game for a bit, or?
No, I always stayed in. I got the Red Eyes Darkness Dragon structure deck after that.
Okay, so you had quite a gap there from...
No, I still had various cards, it's just I didn't have an actual themed deck until I got the Red Eyes Darkness Dragon deck.
But that's kind of where I was getting to, was that fact that you had that Blue Eyes deck all the way through that first Red Eyes Darkness deck. That's quite a span of time to have worked on a Blue Eyes deck, and it's unfortunate that you lost it.
It is. I really cherish that original Kaiba deck, and I would give anything to have that again. Because then the joy of bringing it from, sort of like a pillar where it's from the ground all the way up to the sky.
I get you. But I'm just so glad that we're able to do this interview and finally talk to you and everything, because regrettably, with how things ended with the Executioner, I really wasn't sure I'd ever see you again. I mean...
Yeah, I was a bit upset for quite some time after that, but I got over it. I mean, I bit off more than what I could chew, and as much as I hate to admit it, I acknowledge him as a strong opponent. I mean, he thoroughly kicked my ass from Kingdom Come all the way to New York City, man.
I mean, 10-0. I mean, yeah, I never thought I'd see the day, the whole time going into this thing. I thought you might have had him because you had those pendulums, but you just unfortunately proved my argument that pendulums don't mean shit.
For a long period of time, I sat there and thought, well, pendulums are okay, but I can't stand them because they're both monster and magic. But at that given time when I lost to him, that was the only deck he's never seen me use. So That, and I actually knew what I was doing with the deck, sort of.
Yeah. But we'll get back into that again. But I just wanted to state that I'm really honored that you called me up, that you were here, and that we could have this conversation. I mean, but getting back to where it was, you had that Red Eyes Darkness deck and everything. How far was that from when you first got into Only Heritage? How many years would you say?
Well, I mean, see the thing was, I was a kid at the time, and I was kind of an idiot, and didn't understand card effects, and it wasn't until my 19th birthday to where I really started to, become a powerful opponent, more or less.
I get you.
But throughout the years, I just, used whatever, how to word this? I always used whatever Konami's champion would use if I could acquire the cards.
So you tried to cookie cutter the World Champions deck at the time in order to...
Yes, which is a scumbag move, but at the time, it's...
Yeah, growing up and everything, you're like, ooh, that's the best deck. I want that deck. And then...
Then my 19th birthday came around and everything changed that day.
And you decided that you would...
I would go with a theme.
Was there anything that brought about this, or...
Tired of, the same... Me and a friend that I will not discuss as to who it is, we had this thing going on to where, we were best of friends but greatest of rivals type deal.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like what Joey and Yugi had, one of those things. A long time ago, back before I started destroying people's careers, and I will get into that with you now, there was this guy that gave me a Jinzo. He was a very close friend of mine. I will not disclose as to what his name is, but needless to say, there was another kid around the same age that I was that stole my Jinzo. I got very mad when that happened. Kind of like the different temperatures that you get with a stove, where you get low, medium, hot. I was searing.
You were burning, like, angry with that happening because he gave you a Jinzo for a present, and then...
Some jackass stole it from me. And, well, then there was this situation where it was happening constantly. I was tired of hearing about it, and so were some of my colleagues, that were on my side about the whole situation. You see, little known fact, there was 2 different groups at that time, back when I was 14.
Now, which city was this in, for clarification?
Well, all of the madness started in only Illinois.
Okay.
It started years and years and years ago.
So way before Only Heritage ever popped up.
Yes, way before. This was back in 2004. So
okay.
I was 14 at the time, so,
All right, so go ahead and...
So what ended up happening was there were 2 sides.
Mm-hmm.
There were the people that wanted the anti-rule from Battle City.
So you have to ante up your rares card.
I'm sure you know about Battle City.
Yeah, of course.
And then there are people like me that cannot stand people that do that. We can't. I mean, to me, anteing up a card, unless both parties agree to it, is considered stealing, in my opinion.
Pretty much, yeah.
And, well, things got heated within the original Yu-Gi-Oh group shortly after that. Shortly after the 2 groups were arguing. It was a group that was at Wild Wolves Games and Hobbies. The shop's no longer around, but back in 2004 it was around. It was the one down there by where the theater is in Alma.
I get you. I've seen that area. Now, out of curiosity, how many people were in that group at the time?
There were at least 17 to 18 different people.
17 to 18? Okay. I'm just trying to get a gauge
now,
as far as...
Now, I know some of them personally. There are some of them that I didn't know, and there are some of them that just vanished. One day they just... So, anyways, what ended up happening was there was an original group that was out there. There were 2 other groups. There were my side that didn't want anything to do with the anti-rule, and then there was that side that wanted to start the whole Battle City bullshit. Alright. it's fine off the anime, but in real life, kids don't do that.
Yeah,
You know, just
like
don't.
the whole anti thing is garbage. Like, we even had that problem up here with our original group, and
well, there was a group that formed up. I just called them Wild Wolves because that was the place that we went to. There were two people specifically that were really powerful.
Mm-hmm.
There was Mr. K and Mr. Scott. I won't disclose as to who their actual names are, though.
That's fine.
Mr. K was the original Chaos deck user of that town.
Gotcha.
He was by far the most powerful opponent that anyone could ever face at that time.
So Blackluster Envoy, Chaos Emperor, that whole kind of thing. Holy shit.
He even had an unbeatable Blue Eyes deck that no one was ever able to beat. My Blue Eyes deck that I had at that time was inspired by his.
I get you.
Because his was just, no matter what you did, he just curve stomped you every chance he got.
Cool.
No matter what you did, you could sit there and beat him with everything, even the kitchen sink, and it still wouldn't do anything. But anyways, there was him, and then there was Mr. Scott. Mr. Scott had an Ice Monarch deck. At the time, Mobius, the Frost Monarch, was a very powerful card.
Still is.
Under the right circumstances, but back then, there wasn't a whole lot of counters to him.
Yeah.
Alright, his effect goes off whether you wanted to or not, unless you have certain cards at that time. But as you know, as you and me are both well aware, during that time there wasn't that many counters.
Yeah, you didn't really have counters for monster effects. You had Magic Trap,
You had Magic
Summon, but that was about it. You didn't have counters for monster effects.
Exactly. But these two were the ones ruling the roost, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Now, were they on opposite sides of each other, or were they on the same side together?
They were on the same team. They were buddy-buddies. They didn't pick a side that just destroyed whoever they felt like at the time. Now, they weren't pricks by any means, because they were both very kind guys. But they were the type of opponents that you dread facing in a tournament.
I get you. Now, by chance, were they on the anti-side or the not anti-side, out of curiosity?
They were the wavering type. They didn't particularly care for the anti.
Okay.
But they essentially were the ones that just didn't care for drama in general. They just, stayed out of the way while all hell was breaking loose.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to know where they sat as far as that goes, but continue on with them.
So, little thing about them. As I said once before, they're rolling the roost. There were several others. Me, another friend, Red Baron, very young Red Baron had showed up at some point, but then he vanished for some reason or another for a few years. After that, I didn't see him again until I was 19, so that should tell you something.
Yeah.
All hell broke loose one day when, the opposite group decided, hey, let's go to this group and start making them anti-up. And that's where everything got heated. There was a big war. I went ballistic because of what they did to one of my friends.
Because they forced him into a situation and...
Yeah, they're essentially being rare hunters, those pricks. Lovely. So I went on a destroying rampage and began taking them out.
So was it bottom of the ladder going all the way up, or were you just, I don't care, I'm going for whoever I see first?
Well, I was more or less go for the throat on whoever I could get a hold of first.
Alright, so it didn't matter. It
didn't matter. Eventually, the leader was taken out of that group. I don't remember his name, though. But, then they all started to scatter. I didn't let them escape.
So when you gave them a taste of their own medicine, they're like, oh no.
Yep, only difference is there were higher stakes at it.
Mm-hmm.
They had to anti a card of my choice, and they had to quit forever.
Ooh. How many in total did you beat then?
Well, I had this big giant book of spares that was in a clear, more like a whitish color. I showed you it once.
Yeah, that binder. I remember it.
There is over 200 cards in there. I took at least one from every person I've taken out.
So when you were going after the Executioner, part of your thing was that you wanted to add one of his cards to that collection before you know...
Yeah. I will say that, the reason why I ultimately lost the match is because it was unrighteousness. It was not for a righteous reason. It was for revenge, is what it boils down to.
And hell, even Ryan was telling you the whole time that this is the wrong decision to do. For the love of God, do not do this. And
it was out of anger. I wasn't listening to him, and that's what ultimately cost me.
Yeah.
I will admit that I was being an asshole during that time, and I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, you know that you've had my forgiveness since, because it seemed like once that duel was over, the hatred between you and him just died. Like, when he beat you, there was none. It was like, it's over.
Well, the reason being is one of the rules that the original group had, which the two ringleaders were Kay and Scott. One of the rules that we had, there's like 7 golden rules, but one of the biggest ones was whenever you get defeated by a duelist, and under specific circumstances like what was going on, the hatred, whatever it is that you have, the animosity, call it whatever you like, ceases. I may not be, part of that original group anymore, but I still abide by those laws.
I get you.
Because this is about honor. This is about honoring the promises that you made from the past and the promises you make in the future. It's not about, it's just a card game. That's not what it is to me. It's much more than that.
And I still appreciate the fact that you're telling me all this, because a lot of this is brand new information, because I never got the chance to sit down one-on-one with you and hash out what had happened before you had came in and met American Outlaw. If you want to, go ahead and tell me what happened after you took out those duelists. What happened to the group and everything?
Well, during the time I was angry, I couldn't differ who was ally, who wasn't, so I started destroying literally everybody. Then it came to Kay and Scott. Sorry, I nearly slipped his name there. That won't happen again. What it boils down to is there was no way I could take these guys on alone, because when they face you, they face as a pair. They do not face singles.
So they were a tag team. They didn't duel apart.
They would duel apart rarely. These guys were so good. I'm telling you. If there was a tag team championship in Konami, they would have been tag team champions 100 times, possibly even more. They were
especially
really
with the Chaos deck back in those days. I mean, but what happened with them?
Well, one joined the Navy, I believe.
Okay.
And went overseas.
Was that Kay or Scott?
That was Scott.
Okay.
And Kay moved to Vegas.
All right.
Las Vegas, specifically.
Nevada. Okay.
The last thing I heard about him is he was a security guard somewhere.
All right. But did you ever duel them, or did that not happen?
The last duel I had with Kay and Scott both was before I turned 17 and ultimately had to leave only for a time.
Okay. Now, when you left only for a time, did you keep dueling, or did that stop for a while?
As soon as I found an opponent, so back on track with...
Once you moved back to Florida and everything because of a family situation or whatever, you found an opponent and it was like, bam, off to the races again, right?
Yeah, essentially. It was not about moving back because of a family issue, though. It was more or less my mother at the time. She didn't like the cold weather.
Gotcha.
She is originally from Wisconsin. I am a Florida baby, though.
Gotcha.
I'm raised and born in Florida. Lived there most of my life. Hated the place.
Gotcha.
Not because of the people, but because of the heat. It's just so unbearable there sometimes.
I get you.
And I love seeing the season.
Now, what deck were you using during the time from when you were taking people out to going to Florida and that tenure, what deck were you using, or do you remember?
About the only thing I could say is it was a mixed match of different cards. Like I said, it really didn't come to an actual theme until I was 19.
Okay. Well, you want to bring us up to speed in between you moving back to Florida and when you were 19 this time?
Yes, that I can do. So, going to Florida, for a few weeks, I couldn't find an opponent, so I got 2 random assortment of cards together and began dueling myself.
Okay.
That way, I'm not losing my skill. I'm keeping myself sharp, like a sword.
Yeah, of course.
And I meet this guy. Well, somewhere in between moving down there, I had lost my red eye Darkness Dragon.
Okay.
I don't know what happened to it. I don't remember what happened to it. Maybe it got stolen. Maybe I traded it. I don't remember. A lot of my childhood until the age of 19 is a blur. I know, not in the sense that I don't remember everything. There are core things I remember.
But it's just there was so much going on and stuff that it's just kind of all mashed together.
See,
and
what I think happened ultimately, Big Boss, was we moved out of Only. We went to Galveston, Texas, the island, for about a week or 2. Then a whole mess happened there, and we were forced to go back to Florida.
Gotcha.
The roommates that we went with threw us out.
Wow.
And, yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that particular subject.
And I'm not going to push, so.
Thank you.
But anyway, how'd your dueling go in Florida once you finally had opponents?
Well, I, for some reason, started to get better. I'm not sure what it was. Maybe it was just...
getting older or whatever?
Maybe just maturing, getting older, watching other people play every once in a while. When there's people to watch, I just started learning things.
Okay.
So, I kept kicking this guy's ass over and over and over, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, what's going on here? Why am I not losing? I'm like, there's got to be something wrong here. Either he's letting me win, or I got a better deck. One of the two. I'm not sure which.
Did you find out which it was?
No, never did.
But you just kept beating him.
I just kept winning, and it may have only been a handful of matches that we had, but every single time it would either be a draw or it would be a loss on his part.
Cool.
So, fast forward a bit, I get out of high school at the age of 18. I'm sitting here getting comfortable with my surroundings and stuff, and well, I end up heading back up to Illinois. Reasons I will not say why.
I won't push either, so.
So, I get up to Illinois. I turn 19 April 15th, and that's when everything changes. I get my very first powerful card. I get a Blackluster Soldier Envoy of the Beginning from, I believe was either Master's Collection, I want to say 2.
Yeah, that's the one that it was in.
Or
IOC.
Or it was the IOC. I cannot remember which one it was. My stepfather purchased it for me, as a birthday gift, and I treasured that particular card.
Yeah, because that was a big
card.
Status card back in the day, like you had that.
Well, I mean, even nowadays it's still a staple. You can still use it. It's just not as effective as it used to be.
Exactly.
Partially why I love Warriors so much is because, just the art. I love the art. So ultimately, I started building a deck around it. A colleague of mine, which I will not disclose his name, was making a Chaos type deck as well because he also knew who K was.
Okay.
Because he was getting his ass kicked by K as well. So, I kept winning, rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
And finally, I decided one day, you know what? You need this more than I do, and I hand him my Blackluster Soldier.
Oh wow.
Just so I can have a fair fight, because I had both Blackluster Soldier and Chaos Emperor Dragon both.
Oh fudge. That's...
All I'm gonna say is I got really lucky. Some person I mean, I can't remember exactly how I got it, but I believe it was either through a booster pack or I bought it online. One of the two.
Well, yeah, the Lost Millennium Chaos
It was the
Emperor.
Lost Millennium.
Okay, so it wasn't a booster pack. It was the 3-pack plus free card in the back thing.
Well, either way, it was a misprinted one.
Ooh.
Because it said, instead of saying Y-O-U-R, it's Y-O-R.
Yeah, that is correct.
And
it would have ADN instead of and on it.
Yep.
Yeah, I have that copy in my backpack and everything for one of my Chaos Emperors.
I just love dragons. That's just simply how I have always been. Now, was I good at using them? Up to a certain point, no. I was bad.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I was good with was the chaos monsters, and that was it.
I get you.
So, through the years, I was defeating opponent after opponent. My colleague would battle me, I would battle him, and it would always be a toss-up as to who's going to win. One time, we even KO'd each other at the same time.
Oh, man.
Because giggles, that's why.
Yeah.
Because giggles. So then we got bored. We started destroying anyone that we could find. Out of all the people that I destroyed in the past, he was spared, and there was one other that was spared.
Alright.
He is known as Zappa. Of course, you know the story about Zappa.
Oh, yes, I know the story very well, and we'll get to that later.
He was the only one out of the original people, other than my colleague, that was spared.
Now, is the colleague someone that I've met or was familiar with? Or
I would say by association.
by association? So I've never met him personally.
You have, but as to what his name is, I will not mention who it is.
Okay.
So we started meeting other people. You've met a few of them already.
Yeah.
But before 2015 rolled around, you met a few of the ones that I had met previous to joining with Sean. Well, with
American Outlaw,
American
yeah.
Outlaws group. Sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. But let's cover the before 2015 stuff first, real quick, because I'm going to kind of give an overview of American Outlaw putting his group together before we talk about that part. But if you want to go ahead and talk about some of the people that I know that were in Only Heritage before that, because we know that Red Baron resurfaced somehow. Want to go into detail about him?
Well, I joined a group, that works.
Yeah.
At the age of 19. I didn't see Red Baron again until I was like, I want to say 23, 24, 25, somewhere around there.
Mm-hmm.
And, he shows up. He is ecstatic because he hasn't seen me in years.
Mm-hmm.
At first, I don't remember who he is.
I get you.
Because
such long time has passed and everything,
yeah.
and he looks so different.
I thought the name was familiar, but it wasn't until he mentioned that he had met me at a certain spot, before, that I knew who he was.
Now, were there any other members in Only Heritage that were from the old group that you were a part of, that you can think of, aside from Zappa or...
No, all the other ones were...
All the other ones were new. So Garunix, who used the Fire King deck, he was a newer guy then.
Yes, Garunix was. All the other new ones showed up. But let me get back to 2014.
So getting back to 2014 and everything, there's Bill, there's you, there's Red Baron. Who else is in on this? Is it Camo? Is he in on this as well, or did he come in later?
Camo did not come in until much, much later.
Okay.
So back in 2014, it was, well, not 14, but, it was 2014.
Yeah.
It was just me and Bill at the time. As I said to you before, Red Baron did not show up until I was at 23, so...
Yeah. But then you finally became friends with him again.
Yeah. So, throughout 2014, not a whole lot happened. Me and Bill just kept wrecking people left and right.
Gotcha.
Worse than what Wreck-It Ralph does in any of the movies.
Gotcha.
It was a one-sided beatdown, essentially, what would happen. I will state Zappa and his friend, that I'm just going to call Cole, they would team up and they would lose to me and Bill every single time.
And it was just kind of embarrassing on their part, or?
It wasn't that, it was simply me and Bill had better cards.
I get you.
Me and Bill by this point had both Chaos Ember Dragon and Envoy of the Beginning. I don't remember how Bill got his Chaos Ember Dragon, but his original Envoy of the Beginning was for me. I just happened to get a second one.
Now, when did your Element Dragons come into this whole thing? Was it 2014? Was it a little bit before then? Or was it into 2015 when you finally got that deck up and rolling?
So, I will get to that shortly,
okay.
But basically what ended up happening throughout that year is me and Bill would repeatedly win.
Mm-hmm.
Then 2015 came about. That was the year that things started getting dull. They were to the point to where essentially, you know, you have your go-getters and then you have your people that are rather just not wanting to do it anymore.
Exactly.
So, I cannot remember exactly what day it was that I met Outlaw, but what ended up happening was just as I was about to put my deck up for good and walk, you know, and just be what I need to be, do what I need to do, I found out about this new group that showed up. And
yeah, American Outlaw had moved to Olney in October sometime. He was trying to get a group going with a guy who we'll call Dave. I'm not sure what the guy's name is, but that's just the handle that we've given to him.
I heard a little rumor sometime in October.
But anyway, we just had to take care of a phone call, and I had to double check my records real quick. But yeah, October is when American Outlaw first got down there and everything. He moved there. He was staying with his sister for a while. Then he moved to Olney. And yeah, he kept telling me, I want to get a group started. And I'm like, okay, if you can find people, let's see what we can do. And as I was saying, he had this guy named Dave, which is what we're calling him. We're not sure really a whole lot about this guy because he never really showed up even when you were there. Sean and him were going to get this group going. And Sean had all the paperwork. He was ready to, you know, get things started right then and there. But then an incident happened. Because, as you know, Duelists and Frontières, we refuse to charge entry or, you know, to attend an event or participate in an event or anything like that.
An admittance fee, in other words.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
He went back on his word to both me and American Outlaw and put up the flyer and had a $10 fee on the flyer, which pissed off both of us instantly. And to make matters worse is that people started putting their name on the sheet and submitting the cash to him for the event.
I remember hearing about that, and I did not because at the time money was really tight for me, and I'm not really one to pay my way through tournaments because I know what happens when that happens.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the guy shoved the money in his pocket and ran. Like, you and me both know he's never been heard from again. Like, he just up and vanished. Even the card shop owner, Z, as we'll call him.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Well, what I know is I heard about this flyer. I saw that there was an admittance fee, and that turned me off, and I just walked. Well, come mid 2015, I'm sitting there hanging out with a few friends of mine, and
so it would have been before April then, because 2015 April's when Only Heritage was founded.
Yeah.
So
it was
like
a
maybe
little
March
bit
or
before
something.
that. A little bit before that. Me and a few friends of mine that I had established after returning,
Mm-hmm.
you know, during my, people started dueling again. Little by little people started showing up, so I started playing against them because this is cool. Finally. Opponents that are...
Competition, yeah.
Finally. So, well, we were all dueling one day. Of course, I was wrecking ball, just wrecking house, having a good time while doing it. American Outlaw shows up, he introduces himself, and at first I don't like him. And that's just straight up. At first I don't like him because he seems like he's half out of it at, a lot of the times and whatnot, and, well, I decided, I'll give this guy a shot and see what happens. And me and him established Only Heritage.
And it was quite a quick establishment of Only Heritage from when that got rolling, because in less than a month from when you first met, you guys had established the group and informed me that you were going to have an inaugural Battle Royale to crown the champion. And this is the information that I have. May 1st, you would defeat Camo, Red Baron, Violent T, Garunix, Punished Raven, and American Outlaw to become the first champion. When exactly did Violent T show up during this? Was he in the group before, or was it right after Only Heritage was established that he was in, same with Camo, or how'd that work?
So what happened was, whenever we started establishing the group, that was when Lord of Gehenna, when Violent T, when
Shaggy
Camo,
3D,
yep.
those guys?
Shaggy 3D didn't come until much later, though.
Yeah, but it was like the tail end of that whole,
Yeah, but what ended up happening was Violent T and Lord of Gehenna joined up shortly after.
Yeah.
Actually, no, it was during it because they would have had to have been there for the match to,
But for that inaugural duel, what do you remember about that battle royal that happened?
Smacking people around.
Now, what deck were you using at the time that you were participating?
Well, that was the final days of my original Chaos deck.
Interesting.
During that time, it was the final days. I thought about it long and hard, and I was tired of using the same deck over and over and over, because it's the same crap, just different person you're playing against.
I get you.
So I devised a plan, and Garunix and me became good friends for quite some time, and he introduced me to these 4 dragons. I've always been a dragon lover at heart. I love dragons, no matter what the case is, D&D, fantasy worlds, all that type of stuff. I just find them fascinating. That's just exactly how I am.
Blaster, Burner, Red Ox, Tidal.
So when I saw these 4, I had kind of a, perplexed type deal to where I was confused. I'm like, wait a minute, I've never seen these 4 dragons before. What are they? Fire, water, wind, and rock. Huh. That's fascinating. At the time, I didn't know very many rock, fire, wind, or water types. I only knew of light dark dragons.
Pretty much. That's what dominated the scene until those 4 came on, and they came on hard.
And then, through various negotiations, I got the 4 elemental dragons. And I'm sitting there thinking about, now how can I use these guys efficiently? I tried to use them in one other deck, and it just didn't work.
So it was back to the drawing board.
Back to the drawing board.
You had the foundation of the house, but the house wasn't built yet.
Yeah, I had the idea, I just didn't have the means to do it.
Okay.
Well, then what happened was, shortly before I met you, I figured out something. I'm like, you know what? This reminds me of alchemy in a sense. Because there are many layers to alchemy. Alright, there is life, there is death, there is, several different ways to go about it. So I'm like, this could be a force to be reckoned with if I do this just perfectly. The thing is, when it comes to any alchemic type of chemicals and stuff, you get just one tiny thing wrong, the whole thing backfires.
Exactly.
just one tiny thing. It doesn't matter how minuscule it is. It's just, you got to make the proper ingredients if you're making stuff like cooking.
Exactly.
So I was cooking up this deck, roasting it, deep fried, always good stuff. Then I thought about something. There are typically 20 monsters. That's what I learned at the time when I was younger, is 20 monsters typically is the best ratio. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, these dragons are of 4 different elements, which is something I am not used to doing, not used to seeing. So let's see what I can come up with. So I got 4 dragons of each element: fire, water, rock, and wind. And I combined it together. Then I started gathering spell cards and trap cards.
And you also got the lesser forms of those dragons: pebbles, droplets.
Yes, those ones were a lot harder to acquire than what the big ones were.
Yeah, the big ones were in the tin, and those were a guarantee, whereas the other ones, getting them in packs, sometimes...
It took me forever, alright? The first 3 was no problem. But it was the droplet one that gave me the most issues. I couldn't find anyone that had that. Eventually I did, so I got it, and I got the magic and trap set up, in its most basic form, and that is when I had met you.
Now, I'm just curious because around this time I had met a few of the other players too. Do you remember when Pyrex Kid and E-Man came into the group, or not?
Well, Pyrex and E-Man showed up shortly after...
Or better yet, Yvonne. Pyrex Kid and Yvonne.
Whatever the case.
But as I was trying to go on about and everything in question, do you by chance remember when Pyrex Kid and Yvonne came in the group? Was it before I met you or after I met you that those 2 ended up in...
Well, it was right after the first champion was crowned that they showed up.
Okay.
So shortly before I met you.
Alright. Because we first met in September of that year, and everything else was,
Yeah.
Okay.
So, after... I forget how exactly it happened, but they ended up showing up at some point. So, by the time I got this deck completely done, I've only tested it out 2 times. Just twice. Once was against the person that gave me the monsters to destroy him, ultimately, and then against you.
Now, I had a question about that Element Dragon 2 deck, too. Getting back on the subject of it, because our first duel was, ironically, Element Dragons versus Fortune Ladies. 2 different elemental types going against each other. And it didn't matter in the one duel that I got Harakathy out, you still curb stomped me to hell with those Element Dragons. And I was really impressed, you being the only Heritage Champion at the time, and with the exception of a couple short tenures, you had that championship that entire run.
I remember that match quite well. You and me had that match. I didn't know what to expect. I heard from American Outlaw a few weeks before you showed up that I heard about you and the rest of them, and that's what caught my interest. At first I thought it was just going to be, this group that was ultimately going to die. And
would you care to talk about the stuff that was going on behind the scenes during that time as well? Even though you were second in command with American Outlaw, there's something else that you told me about that I feel that to give people perspective, we need to discuss as well.
Well, to put it in perspective, going into this group originally, I wasn't a good guy, by any means. I wanted the same thing that certain people wanted as well. And,
it's time to name names. Who was all in on that?
Well, it was me, it was Bill, it was Garunix, and it was the E-dude, I forget his
Yvonne?
name. Yeah, Yvonne.
So Zappa wasn't involved in it?
He was involved, but he was one of the ones that would show up only from time to time.
Okay.
So, Then everything, my perspective on everything changed once I met you.
Because we had one hell of a duel against each other. I mean, I pushed you to the absolute limit that you could push a player to. I came so close to beating you, but couldn't pull it off.
You pulled out something that I thought I would never be able to go through. I mean, come on, Herocracy, the god of all gods in this game. Alright?
And not to mention, I tribute summoned two of the Egyptian gods to get it out, too. I mean...
I did not see that coming. I was like... Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking that we're playing by Konami rules, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, crap, I just lost.
Mm-hmm.
Because in Konami rules, when Herocracy is brought out, you lose.
But with our rule set, since you wanted to test it under that, I was telling you what you could do as you were playing, and I'm like, no, I have to attack you directly in order to win the match.
Yep.
And you prevented me from attacking you directly.
As soon as you said those words, I knew what I had to do. I'm like, okay, so if he attacks me directly, I'm going to lose the match. I need to have something out that he cannot kill. So I pull out of my extra deck Breezeus of the Diabolic Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
The first form. Not its bigger form, but the first form is what I pull out.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout that match, that stalled you.
Yeah.
That was enough to keep Herocracy from smacking my face.
Because if I can't destroy it with card effect, Herocracy can't punch through it. It doesn't do normal battle.
Mm-hmm. So then, as the battle waged on, I was slowly whittling away at your life points. Then finally, I came up with a way to beat you for the first time. But it was a matter of you getting out a monster so I could do piercing. And, well...
Yep, I did. I put one of my monsters in defense position. You hammered the hell out of it, which was a mistake on my part.
Mm-hmm. See, that's the thing with...
Spear Dragon got me bad.
It wasn't just Spear Dragon, though. You took out Spear Dragon, then I pulled out Gaia Champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that does piercing as well.
Yep, that one. I just remembered the Spear Dragon more because you were able to skillfully do that as I'm trying to build up an offense.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second duel, which we had of that match, I went a different route. I went more for my Asilipiscu, since that's what I drew, but you were able to
counter that one.
Counter it by taking out the field card. So because it was destroyed by that effect, well...
Yep. It was not an easy victory, but it was a victory well deserved.
And I appreciate that.
That was the first time someone other than my partner Bill, my friend Bill, that was the first time in so many years that I've been pushed. And that was the furthest I've ever been pushed.
And then the first thing that I told you after that duel is that I'm not the strongest guy in the Pontiac Duelist League.
That right there, when you told me those following words, that right there got me hooked.
Because I'm middle of the road. Like, the Executioner, Kalar Draga, Savril especially, he is the top guy. Like, trying to knock him off, you've never defeated him one-on-one in a duel. Like, you were in the same position that I was for the longest time against you. It was 4 years before I finally defeated that Element Dragon deck. And I had to use the ultimate counter strategy to it, using an Element Dragon with Armed Dragon Catapult Cannon.
Yes, it took you a very long time.
And it was stupid high risk too, because in order to do that, I'm losing half my life points off the bat, and I can't set anything.
Yep, you sure did. But back on the topic. So I met you, and shortly after I met Kalar Draga, I met Savril, and I also met the Executioner.
You also met Jedi Ninja in Burial 117, and it was before that, actually, that you would also meet the man who you would win your only tag team title with, Apostate Goomba. Mm-hmm. Is there anything you'd like to say about that particular duelist, or...?
I don't talk about people that don't matter.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to push further on that.
It's not that I don't care about people. It's what they did I don't particularly care about. And, I try to only think of the good things when it comes to people.
Gotcha.
I try to think of only the good times.
You try to ignore the unethical crap on the side that...
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even in spite of that, what it boils down to is, even though me and Garunix, even though we were on opposite sides, I still consider him a friend.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean I'm going to sit there and throw everything aside just for one person.
Exactly.
And that is the type of person I am. I don't throw everything aside for one person unless there is a very good reason.
Mm-hmm.
So, I dueled against Jedi Ninja. It took me a while, but I finally beat him.
Yeah. The first duel that you had, you got a world title shot against him, actually. But, starting back off again, what were your thoughts after having that good duel with me? The fact that you were rewarded with a world championship match against Jedi Ninja, who was the champion at the time. And then coming down to both of you almost being decked out. And him having one card set down. You attacked it with Hero Shadow Scout and you lost by deck out instead of him. Would you care to elaborate on what your thoughts were?
Well, a little bit of it was sadness because I knew once I had did that, it's one of those, you fucked up type deals.
And you were so close had you just ended your turn.
I could practically taste the gold. Practically taste
You
it.
went in as Heritage Champion and almost took the world title in that duel.
Yep, but it eluded me because I made a fatal mistake in that match.
Exactly. And you grew from it, though,
Mm-hmm. If you ever notice, whenever I make a mistake, I don't make it twice.
Exactly.
Mm.
And then shortly after this and everything, Violent T would get shots at the Heritage Championship and other members. We also had that tenure with you as Tag Team Champion with Goomba.
Mm-hmm.
Which you guys would end up losing the tag team titles in a blowout to end all blowouts. What were your thoughts about being beat by Jedi Ninja again?
I was irritated, to say the least. I'm like, seriously, this is the second time I've lost to this dude. But he appears to be really good, but he's got this broken-ass strategy. Right,
he uses a flip effect deck, and he abuses the shit out of that Prediction Princess monster to reuse them over and over and over again.
It's kind of like those trolls that you get online where they just, they just keep doing the same thing, and it's like...
Yeah, you just want to facepalm and be like... But at the same time, though, you gotta give him credit because it was a strategy that had never been done before.
Yeah, it was
and he
good.
Perfected it.
It was good, but it was bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
So then, after facing him, I faced Mantis.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got wrecked.
Yeah, Mantis, unfortunately, with him, he...
Don't get me wrong, he has a good deck and he is a good duelist. It's just I simply have had the upper hand.
A lot of problems times too is that he tries to overthink things and revamp a deck when it doesn't need revamping. And then he messes with frickin' cooking too much, and then you have a deck which was good, and then you do too much to it, and it's no longer good. You gotta go back with it to put it back to how the original meat and potatoes were. You don't need to throw in all that other stuff a lot of the time.
Well, I mean, it essentially reminds me of Punished Raven. He's the same way.
Yeah, but let's talk about Punished Raven since we're on that subject, because he's a duelist who had a lot of freaking problems, and the fact that he's overcome these problems, I mean, for the longest time, he had an issue which American Outlaw, which his sister Kayla Ardrega, were trying to get addressed. Seriously addressed. And you as well as I know it, he's schizophrenic and bipolar.
Yeah, awful combination to have.
But the problem is that none of the doctors were willing to listen to what we were telling them. They were trying to pass it off as, oh, he's transgender, he's this, which fit nothing in with what was going on with him, burning himself, cutting himself, all that stuff. And it was like, you and me both know, and we have permission to talk about this, the reason that Punished Raven was kicked out of Only Heritage was for not only assaulting his dad, which he went to jail for and everything like that, but on top of that, his drug problem at the time, which we have permission to talk about it. He wanted us to talk about it. You throw in doing PCP and marijuana, and with bipolar and schizophrenia, it's not a good combination.
No, that's pretty much asking for a disaster waiting to happen.
And the fact that he was doing it so under the radar, like, he was really good at, hiding it. But once we found out and everything, and then after the arrest, it was finally after he was arrested, after attacking his dad and everything, and all that stuff, that someone finally looked at him, really looked at him, and analyzed what was going on with him, and got him on the right medicine, and got him the help that he needed. Because you've seen the pictures of Punished Raven now, day and night difference.
He's a lot better now than what he was.
He's lost almost 100 pounds. He looks healthier. I mean, props to him. I mean, and the people that helped him. Because I was so afraid for years that I'd wake up one morning and get the news that he had passed away or ran away or something, and
the people that helped him, they have my thanks for what they've done.
And I'm glad that he had the internal strength to finally realize, shit, I got a problem. I can't keep doing this. I'm killing myself. And even though he'll never be an Only Heritage Duelist Sans Frontières Pontiac Duelist League ever again, we have to thank him for everything that he did for both of our groups. I mean, yes, he had the problems. Yes, they happened. And yeah, they were a stain on everything that we did. But at the same time, the fact that we can look at him and see that he overcame all that, that's the message.
It's a man's journey.
And that there was fucking light at the end of the tunnel once they diagnosed the type of schizophrenia that he had. Because it's not so much that... Because I always thought funny that he would try and talk about certain things, but the schizophrenia that he has no differentiating fantasy and reality. To him, Star Wars and Lord of the Rings is as real as you and me sitting in this room and talking right now. Which isn't good.
It isn't. But you know what's important is at least he finally got the help he needed.
Yeah. He got over the hill and everything. He climbed the mountain and yeah. And then, let's get on to the subject again. There was an incident involving Camo and American Outlaw that would happen during this time as well. Did you want to talk about that?
Okay, so I remember this one quite clearly. What happened was American Outlaw was versing Camo for the hardcore title at the time.
Yeah.
Camo was using a Cosmo Destroyer deck, if I remember correctly. Yep. You know, Cosmos.
Yeah, I have a deck like that too, so I know.
I want the deck because it's Star Wars related, but that's just me. You know?
Star Wars fused with Wizard of Oz.
Something like that. But anyway, what ended up happening in the match is American Outlaw used Woodland Sprite, the one monster that I despise above all others. And
he used it with Butterfly Dagger Elma.
Yep.
Problem is that with Woodland Sprite's effect, Butterfly Dagger Elma does not work. So there was a big blow-up because Camo was trying to accuse American Outlaw of cheating in the duel when American Outlaw didn't even shuffle his deck. You shuffled his deck.
Yes, there's
and the fact that he drew a similar hand, and the fact that everyone else watched you shuffle that deck and said, no, you did exactly what you were supposed to.
I mean, it is what it is. American Outlaw went into what I honestly thought was a devastating combo, but ultimately we found out later on
that you can't even do the combo.
You can't even do it. So,
and I tried reasoning with Camo myself after that. It's like, hey, and he kept going off about American Outlaw. It's like, dude, are you not listening to what I'm saying? Like, if you would cool down
and
listen, no one's believing you saying that he cheated, and then he went on to accuse you of cheating. Because he's like, oh, he rigged his deck, he did this. Well, I hear from other people that RedMyst shuffled his deck, and then he accused you of cheating. Ultimately, Camo couldn't be reasoned with, refused to see reason, and we were stuck in a situation that, even though American Outlaw used a card combination that couldn't even work, his opponent's disqualified for unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yeah.
And during that time, Zappa, go ahead and say it.
Well, during that time, Zappa just, he went from being someone I thought I could trust to someone that fell off the rails. All the way down.
Mm-hmm.
He started his own group and proceeded to, instead of, it being a friendly match, which was originally agreed upon, you were there, you witnessed what was said. Instead of it being a friendly match, it turned into a competitive thing, and then he got real aggressive, if I remember things correctly.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure what it was about, but we had that duel. Ultimately, what was it? 2 or 3 weeks later, after that incident happened.
I was speaking more like what Zappa did to American Outlaw's face after Camo had walked out. What he had said, more so than the other thing.
Didn't he say I quit? I'm not entirely sure.
Not only that he was quitting, that he was starting a group to compete against Outlaw.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I remember.
And then it was also at that same time that Pyrex Kid walked off with him.
Mm-hmm. He sure did, and I was confused as to why he did. Nothing was going on.
Because you're in this underneath group that's going to work to subvert American Outlaw, but at the same time, these guys are acting
odd.
Yeah, and it's like, wait a second, I'm supposed to be in on this too. What the hell's going on here?
Yep. So they're sitting there, getting all mean and rude, not only towards Outlaw, but also towards me, when I had nothing to do with what happened. And so, a few weeks after that whole nonsense happened, me and Zappa had, it got so bad that one of our careers was going to end. He angered me enough to where I left the chat for a time to calm down, because he got me to a raging point, and I'm pretty sure, unless I'm mistaken, you saw what was going on.
Yeah.
You understood what had happened.
Yeah.
So we had this match. At the time, I was using one particular pendulum deck that was just beautiful.
Dynomist.
Yes.
The one that you gave to me.
It was not a broken deck, but it was really good.
Like, I've made some modifications to it, like just spell and trap wise, to balance it out more, because I run 50 cards as opposed to 40. But that deck is beautiful all the way through. Like,
that one I spent a lot of time on.
And
a lot of time.
Would you care to elaborate on what deck he was using at the time?
Okay, so, well, I can't remember entirely what his first deck was, because it got ruffle stomped so easily. But the second deck he tried to switch, during the match, in Konami rules and any rules in general that involve Yu-Gi-Oh, you're not supposed to switch decks in between matches.
Yeah, when you start a match duel, you are not allowed to change an entire deck. Like, even Konami's thing. You have a sideboard, you have 15 cards you can change out of the deck, and that's it. That's all you can touch. You cannot switch an entire deck in the middle of a match and say, no, I'm switching that. You are forfeiting the match if you want to switch decks.
That's what agitates.
Because if I remember correctly, he wanted to ban your Element Dragon deck from being played. You banned his Amorphage deck from being played. So you both were using different decks other than your main decks for that duel.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to remember what his deck that he was using was, because...
See, that's the thing, I can't remember it.
But you wrecked him horribly in it, because I remember getting the blow-by-blow from Red Baron that, hey, dude, this is what happened. And I'm like, whoa.
Lesson to be learned. Don't piss me off.
Lesson to be learned, Dynomists are
Brutal.
fucking brutal.
They're beautiful, though. I mean, they may be machines, they may be pendulums, but they're the most beautiful pendulum deck I've ever seen.
I really like it. It's still one of my favorite decks. I hate pendulums with a burning passion.
But that one's an exception.
But I like that deck.
Because you don't necessarily need to use the pendulum mechanic at all.
But let's go back a little bit before that happened. Before that whole breakup and everything, we had our first Extreme Elimination event in Olney. Olney Heritage Duelist League, hosted on June 25th, 2016. A battle between the Pontiac Duelist League and Olney Heritage Duelist League. Numbers were drawn ahead of time. Pyrex Kid was number 1. For you guys' side, lowest number, he's starting the duel. HollywoodBigBoss, me, lowest side on our side, I'm starting against him. Jedi Ninja is number 8. Several is number 10. Krunix is 13. Mantis is 14. Red Baron is 15. Kalar Draga is 16. Zappa had 17. Camo had 19. Goomba Boy had 21. Burial 117, 22. And you were coming in last with number 23.
Mm-hmm.
And you recall that Pyrex Kid was using an Amorphage deck, which you absolutely hate.
It's blasphemy because it's a dragon deck. That's not what irritates me. The whole fact that the dragons are mixed with other animals. Those are not dragons. Those are chimeras, people.
Yeah.
You know, they're not dragons. It's blasphemy.
And then you had me, who was doing an interesting deck. Would you care to tell them about it, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
I debuted a deck 6 months before any of the cards were released in America. This was a debut of my Magician Girl Egyptian God deck / Exodia deck.
Mm-hmm.
And Pyrex Kid was having a really hard time dealing with it once some of the stuff started going off on it.
I remember through a good portion of it, though, everyone was struggling to even do anything with him.
Yeah, I mean,
come on. The 4 mages are all about negating crap. That's what it is.
And his problem was that deck was kind of its own worst enemy. Once it couldn't punch through my Marshmallow, it was like, okay, I'm safe. And then I got the Winged Dragon of Ra Spear mode out. And then I got Harakathy out. And it's like, I can't really go on offense, but at the same time, there's nothing he can freaking do. Mantis knocked him out, which shocked the shit out of both of us, because it's like, oh, crap.
Well, remember, for the longest time, Pyrax was weakening everybody, you know, just stalling them out.
Yeah, and that wasn't until the 15th turn of the freaking duel. I mean, then I defeated Grunix the following turn when I got Exodia the Forbidden One, and he was making all of us hemorrhage frickin' life points with the Solar Flare Dragon / Burn deck, which would have worked fine for him had people not add more effect damage counters than what they did. And then the biggest explosion of the duel was when Mantis used Restructor Revolution, like an idiot, knocking out a good chunk of the Pontiac guys, and Kalar Draga did the smart thing and chained Nature's Reflection. So she knocked out me, Jedi Ninja, Savril, and Red Baron. 16th turn. Mantis 3 turns later would defeat Zappa. Kalar Draga would defeat Camo and Apostate Goomba via deck out. She used her Rainbow Neos Exchange of the Spirit combo.
It was around that time where Goomba... Was it that time that Goomba raged, or was it a different time?
He raged because he didn't get a fucking turn in the duel.
Yeah.
He drew, and then bang.
He got curve stomped.
Yeah.
Because I remember that he raged about that, and, you know, that's not professional like
And
that.
Camo kept targeting Kalar Draga's Winged Dragon of Ra like an idiot when he should have targeted her Rainbow Neos, which kept sending all their shit back into their decks. And it's like, that God card's just sitting there, not doing anything, can't do anything. Why are you guys not addressing the Rainbow Neos that's on the frickin' field, which is
the biggest threat.
The biggest threat and the biggest problem, because she's shuffling all your shit back into your decks. And then she did it the final time, top card of deck to graveyard, shuffle your graveyards in, and then exchange of the spirit, you ain't got a fucking deck. Back to we were, Kalar Dragon knocked out all them with exchange of the spirit and Rainbow Neos, and then would win extreme elimination, taking out Mantis with her Harakathy, who had 0 fucking defenses left. You would finally enter the duel, and Jedi Ninja would cash in his Money in the Bank contract to re-enter extreme elimination. You took out Burial 117, but once again, you and Jedi Ninja would end in a draw. Both of you, I think, decked out at the same time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what happened. It was another long fight. It really was.
Because I think he used final attack orders on you, and then, yeah. Duel just ended in a draw, and as a result, Jedi Ninja took the 3rd place prize. You took the 2nd place prize, which was a Korean Legendary binder, which had the Korean Obelisk, Slifer, and Ra. That's where you also got your Korean Element Dragons, which was beautiful for you. And then last but not least, Kalar Draga awarded her Millennium Box Gold Edition to Apostate Goomba as a peace offering for him not getting a fucking turn, as he said. So what were your thoughts about getting those Korean cards out of that binder and everything?
There are a lot of cards that I love, but those Korean God cards, those Korean Elemental Dragons, are just absolutely beautiful.
I mean, the Stormwind Dragon is a gold rare Korean. I mean, what more can you say about it?
What more could I ask for? I mean, it's just beautiful.
But we're going to go back to after everything that happened with American Outlaw. There were clearly 2 groups in only now. However, it looked like you had taken out Zappa, the leader of the other groups. So that pretty much just left Pyrex Kid by himself with Yvonne, who was kind of skirting, being like, oh no, I'll be in both groups, but, well, yeah. You can say what you thought about that.
Look, growing up, I've learned a simple concept. One side or the other. You can't be in between. It's one or the other.
You can't serve 2 masters, like...
You cannot serve 2 masters. You cannot serve 2 feudal lords. You can't serve 2 kings. It really is that simple, because you're going to be called a traitor no matter which way you go about it.
Yeah. But anyway, things continued to devolve that year because, as you know, Bill and Garunix started their plans underneath the table. Would you like to tell us about that?
I could say, with all honesty, that they wanted to, they saw what had happened with the guys. I sat there and thought everything would be fine. Everyone would calm down, cool their jets, everything would be okay. No. What ended up happening was Garunix and Bill, which wasn't originally part of the group to begin with.
Yeah, he never dueled in Duelists sans Frontières.
I will say that Garunix, acted innocent. He said he was busy with work or something of that sort, and that he would still come and play even though he is essentially walked away.
And he had his final duel at the event, lost his title and everything, and said, hey, I'm going to be, not able to participate, and even told me, hey, just tell me when you're down here, I'll show up. And that wasn't the case. Even though we all originally thought, well, at least you guys originally thought that's what was going on. I will admit I knew more of what was being let on. Care to share? He was wanting to establish his own group and proceed
to take out Outlaw's group.
And at the same
moment,
time...
That moment right there, whenever I saw how he was going about it, I turned my back on the plan and decided to side with you guys completely.
But ironically, did you ever tell American Outlaw that he was doing this behind his back?
At the time I didn't say nothing. I just watched, but I did tell you. You know,
that something wasn't right.
Something wasn't right, but
you didn't specify.
I couldn't specify because I was, you know, under oath not to say nothing.
And then come to hear from a source which we both were not
expecting.
Yeah. Apostate Goomba, of all people, comes to American Outlaw and says, hey, Grunix is making his own group to compete against DSF and PDL and Only Heritage.
I don't think that's what triggered the rage with the group. What triggered the rage with the group was the way he went about it. You know.
And then after Goomba had told American Outlaw, he lied about it, only for us to get public confirmation from Bill that they're doing this group. And then once it was public, well,
everything just evolved from there.
Battle lines were clearly drawn, and yeah.
You know, it's so sad. I mean, a lot of them that turned their backs on the group, they had a lot of promise. Each of them did. All of them had promise. Kid, you know, Pyrex Kid had promise. Yvonne.
No, that kid had no frickin' promise. He was the job guy to end all job guys.
You got a point there.
I just hate to say it, but when I blow you out of the frickin' water with a traditional format deck that is Noble Knights and you don't do jack shit, it's like...
I mean, you know, at the time he didn't have the greatest decks.
Yeah, and it's like, when you're punching a punching bag, the punching bag doesn't punch back. That's kind of what a duel with Yvonne was. It's like...
Yeah, you got a fair point there. I mean, back then he really didn't have any good decks. And that's just being straight up.
Yeah.
So, you know, Grunix, he had potential.
And flushed it all down the toilet.
And
had he not done what he did,
and you know,
he was third in command of Only Heritage. At that point, it was you. Outlaw was number 1. He was number 3.
You know, the saddest part about the whole thing was I come to find out later on that he had given someone else the fire deck, which was given to him by me.
Yeah.
That was...
upset you a lot.
That upset me a lot because that was supposed to be a gift for him. He was supposed to use that to do good things with, but instead, well...
He just discarded it like he didn't care.
He discarded it like he did not care, and it saddens me.
But yeah, I want to just ask you a question. Do you think Apostate Goomba was put up to telling American Outlaw that Bill and Grunix were making this group on the side?
You know, I think truthfully about Apostate Goomba, he knew more than what he was letting on the entire time.
So you think he was in on the whole thing?
Mm-hmm. Unknown to me because I did not know.
And you think just because you were staying around American Outlaw more, they just decided, oh, we'll cut him out and that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, it was one of those things. But it wasn't until you know, after this whole hate between both of the groups started that I started to think that something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Reason being is, you know, there was a lot of bitterness between both of the groups.
Yeah, there was.
And I mean a lot of bitterness. None of us liked each other. We wanted to just take the opposite out. But the thing is, you know, I wasn't really hell bent on taking anyone out.
Me, I was of the mindset that they're a group of betrayers. My stance on the issue is that we were dealing with a group of traitors. Traitors who will inevitably betray each other. And you've seen what's happened. I've seen what's happened. I mean, looking at the remnant of their thing, which don't even play anymore, versus DSF, which still has active competition every week, is there any wonder which side was going to succeed? A side that had a game plan that's like, okay, I'm in charge, I'm majority owner. If you don't like it, you can leave. I don't care. But if you leave the reservation on bad terms, well, I'm probably never going to let you back in. But we have a direction, people can influence it, but the buck's got to stop somewhere. With their group, it just seemed like the Wild West, and no one knows who's in charge of what.
Well, I mean, if you go by Wild West perspectives, it was lawless.
Yeah. And I made an emergency trip down to Olney to appoint you as, officially on paper, as first executive officer, appoint Violent T as second executive officer, who had just came back from Indianapolis, that area, Indiana, that kind of thing. And, yeah, we had an event. American Outlaw would lose the Intercontinental Championship, now Intercontinental Championship, to me. And then Violent T would attempt to win it back after that. But the situation just kept escalating and escalating and escalating. But at that meeting, there was some uncomfortable information that you and me were both made privy to. That American Outlaw mentioned that he had a problem with his doctor, and brought up the fact that on his charts he was at stage 2 kidney failure.
Ignore that.
Oh.
It's just Red Baron, I'll call him back.
But what were your thoughts about him just nonchalantly saying it like there's no problem?
You know, saying that there is no problem, with the information we found out, clearly means he's not letting on the truth.
Yeah.
Give me just a second. I'm going to put this on quiet mode.
Okay. But what were your thoughts about that whole thing? Because that was a shock to both of us, quite frankly.
Well, I mean, you know, I know how American Outlaw is. He doesn't want people to worry about him, but ultimately, the less you tell people, the more they're going to worry.
Yeah. And that brought us to the first time where you came up to Pontiac, to our territory, to challenge for a world championship, and it would ironically be one of the most amazing duels that we would ever see out of you and everything during this time period.
Yeah, it was Savile would be the one that I'd be challenging, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm. Because I don't think we had that fatal four-way with Savile, me, you, and Ren till later, was it?
No, it wasn't until much later than that. I didn't meet Ren until, you know,
last year.
Last year.
But anyway, getting back on the topic of that, you had your title match, you didn't win and everything. But we both had something major to discuss with Outlaw, being his personal health and everything, because you and me both know that he had had his health issues, and that he was worse for wear at times. And yeah, we both, on our way back, because Outlaw was wanting to get you in as co-owner of the group, and it's like he wanted you to be his number 2 guy. He wanted to lock you in, you know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I didn't even talk to American Outlaw after he had said the kidney failure, because I couldn't find the courage to do it. Like, hearing someone, your father-in-law, say that, it's just like a punch to the gut. Like, you don't know how to react.
It's like an arrow shot through the heart.
Yeah. So after a couple months, from January till March, finally worked up the courage to ask him, is this true? I said, yeah, boss, it is. It's like, okay. You want to have RedMyst as your co-owner of your group? And he's like, yeah, I'm dead set on it. I want him to be there taking over in case. He didn't want Punished Raven. He didn't want anyone else.
See, I was completely unaware about this at the time.
Yeah.
I was completely unaware.
Because we pulled you aside with him to talk outside. It was just the three of us. And it's like, Kaylar Drago went in to talk to Goomba because we didn't want anyone else hearing the conversation. But it's like, okay. Then we have the incident between Garunix and American Outlaw.
If those two went from being okay with one another to being completely bitter.
Yeah, like American Outlaw was hurt emotionally. Someone who he started to view as a kid who he could guide and everything, to almost like a son, knife him in the back. There were a lot of bitter feelings. I mean, you and me both know it.
Heck, I had bitter feelings. You know that.
And it came down to Garunix being an idiot and being like, oh, I could wager this, and you'd never beat me.
And, of course, the battle happened. Needless to say, Outlaw won the match.
American Outlaw was using a Spellcaster Magician Girl deck, kind of modified, not modified, but kind of in tribute to mine.
Yes, that I helped him create.
Yeah. And Garunix, do you remember what deck he was using? Wasn't it a water deck of some kind?
Something like that.
And he offered up a Diabound Colonel in ante for that duel. He's like, oh, I'm putting this card up because I guarantee you won't win.
Well, HollywoodBigBoss, you know how I feel about antes.
Yeah.
You know my story, you know why I don't like it. But, you know, the overcockiness of what Garunix had at the time overruled the whole me not liking the aspect. I'm like, okay. So, little known fact about Outlaw that a lot of people don't know is he cannot see very well with his eyes.
Yeah.
He has to have them up close, and if he cannot see them up close, someone needs to tell them what
someone would have to read him off to him because he had really bad vision. And a lot of times, unfortunately, you would forget his glasses, so you would have to read it off.
Mm-hmm.
And how did the duel between Garunix and American Outlaw go? How was it one-sided? Was it a brutal battle?
Well, I mean, once Outlaw started using the Magician Girls, they pretty much stunned Garunix, and eventually Outlaw got the killing blow.
Because Outlaw had normally used a Dragon deck. This was a total change of tempo from what everyone was really used to, you know?
What everyone was expecting.
Yeah.
And, you know, you got to face that Magician Girl deck in action too, and you said it was good.
The day that we had that conversation with Outlaw, we just sat at Burger King eating and everything. He's like, oh, I want to duel you. It's like, okay. My wife was wanting to get back to Pontiac in a hurry, and I'm like, no, this duel will only take 5 minutes. 1 hour later, I still cannot put him the fuck away. Mm-hmm. That's how good that Spellcaster deck was. My Harakathy deck could not get through that wall.
Yep, and it's all because I got the cards for him, I helped him build it, you know. I guess it's the one thing I'm really good at whenever I focus on this building decks.
And I really appreciate that you went out of your way to help him and get that deck for him. But, regrettably, that duel against Garunix was the last duel that American Outlaw ever had before he passed away.
Yeah,
we can't go into details about it legally. I've signed documentation. I won't talk about it. I can't talk about it, but
I won't talk about what happened either.
The last duel that he had, he humiliated Garunix.
Which caused even more bitterness.
And you handed me the Diabound Colonel that American Outlaw